Welcome to the selfgrowth.com show. My name is David Riklan, and I'm the founder of selfgrowth.com. Today, we'll be discussing 5 secrets to a stress-free life. To help us understand this topic, I'm excited to interview Kim Holden. Make sure to listen closely. We're going to be sharing a lot of information today. Before we get started, I want to take a couple of minutes and share some information about Kim. Kim Holden is a dynamic speaker and expert in how to de-stress holistically. Her colleagues say this about her. Kim is a sincere, inspiring, and motivating teacher. Kim has her own health and wellness nurse coaching business called Holistic Connection and helps people with stress management as well as teaching them about health and wellness. With a background in public health and nursing, she's learned how to look at the whole person, including mind, body, and spirit. Kim has her PhD in nursing and a Master of Public Health and Epidemiology. She has over 30 years of experience in the healthcare industry. She's a board-certified advanced holistic nurse, hospice and palliative nurse, and a health and wellness nurse coach. She's also a holistic stress management instructor and a clinical aromatherapist. Her website, I'm going to ask everybody to jot this down so you can get information from her later or contact her. Her website is yourholisticconnection.com. So it's www.yourholisticconnection.com. Kim, welcome to our show.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
All right.
Or afternoon, wherever you're at in the world. So.
Yeah, I like to go with good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you happen to be. All right, so we're gonna jump right in over here. So I know you focus on alternative health and wellness. What led you to start exploring the alternative health and wellness industry?
Well, I always say, how long do you have to be able to really go there? But I'll make it brief since we don't have a lot of time to spare. So I really started looking at holistic ways to deal with stress. For me, I lost my husband several years ago, and actually it'll be 18 years in March. So I began to explore the holistic avenue of how did I want to deal with that stress? How did I want to, I'm not one that likes to take a lot of medications. So how really did I want to deal with it? And then after he died, I remarried and then divorced that husband. And in the process, I said that I moved to North Carolina. I went through a divorce. I moved to North Carolina to take a new job. I was learning to live on one income. I was learning a new job, new friends in a new state, and I was trying to finish a PhD. Do you think I was a little stressed?
Yeah.
So yeah, just a teeny tiny bit. So in the process of that, I really wanted to explore more about what could I do for me to really manage my stress. So, I looked into, like the massage and, reflexology and all of those different avenues. I mean, there's so many avenues when we look at holistic health as to what is it? You've got, I have friends that are healing touch providers. I have friends that are Reiki masters. I have friends that do essential oils. So it's like, where did I want to go? What was best for me? So that's kind of my journey in a nutshell. I also say that when I was in nursing school, I went to a Christian university, and we in the process of that, we really looked at that mind, body, spirit.
Right.
So I've always looked at my patients in that mind, body, spirit. I don't look at them as their bits, pieces, and parts. So I taught nursing school for I actually still teach nursing school. And I used to always tell my students that I did not want them to look at that patient as just their disease. I wanted them to look at that whole person, because looking at that whole person's how you're going to be able to help them.
Right. So. Well, first, listening to your story, these are all major stressors.
Yes.
You lost your husband, divorce, moving. These are all things that really are gut-wrenching. Life changes, and you look at the scale of how things impact you. These are things that have a great impact on you. Right. So I could see why you needed to figure out a way that can reduce the stress in your life. it's difficult, and people deal with it in many different ways. So yeah, you clearly went a holistic and natural approach to developing, what's the best way. And I think my take is that's always the best start to figure that out. And I know, so you started mentioning you're recommending as a nurse to look at kind of the whole person, holistic healing, and you combine nursing with holistic healing. And that's one of the things you take. What made you see this was needed?
Well, coming from the nursing perspective, I mean, it's like, that's the nice thing about being a health and wellness nurse coach, is because I have that healthcare background. So I have that nursing background, and that I'm able to look at that person. I'm able to look at their disease. So let's just say someone's got diabetes, okay, or high blood pressure. Then when they have high blood pressure, they have diabetes, and they're sick, or their, diabetes or their high blood pressure is out of whack. It's not a great term, but it's the best term that I can think of. When it's out of whack, then their blood sugar or their blood pressure is going to be elevated.
Right.
So being able to really get to the bottom of what's going on. And so that is a stressor. When you're sick, that's a stressor.
Sure.
So let's try and figure out some holistic measures or holistic ways to really be able to deal with that stress. So being that nurse, I was able to, I can understand the disease process, that disease or that healthcare issue that's going on with them. And then I'm able to really be able to kind of get to the bottom of it and see, is there ways that we can deal with this, but using some holistic measures to help you deal with what's going on. Now, I would never, as a nurse, and I'm gonna make this clarification, that as a nurse, I would never tell anyone to, like go off their blood pressure medicines or go off their, diabetic medicines, but really, being able to understand, what is maybe causing you to have some stress right now. So let's figure out that stressor, and maybe being able to do some exercises or meditation or whatever to really be able to work with that stress.
So that makes sense. So you're really combining the combination, nursing, holistic, the medical side, the holistic side. All right, so let's delve a little bit more. So today's interview, as I mentioned earlier, it's the 5 secrets to a stress-free life. So before we get into some of the secrets, how do you see stress affecting people? How does it affect? I know it affects your health, or mentally, physically. What are you seeing in terms of the impact of stress?
Well, stress is, as my mom and daddy used to always say, I'm from the South, so it's like you're hearing that. So it's like I use these, these analogies of being from the South and stuff. But my mom and daddy used to always say that stress does strange things to your body, and it does. I mean, it can cause you to have stomach issues. It can cause you to have, if you don't have high blood pressure, it can cause some high blood pressure because you're stressed all the time. I mean, and I'm a prime example of that, that yes, high blood pressure runs in my family, but I never felt like that I was under really a lot of stress up until the last few years. And now I'm having to take high blood pressure medicine because I can't get that blood pressure down. So I'm having to take medicine myself. So it can show up in a lot of different ways. I mean, there's different symptoms. I talk about, I have these 3 stress characters. I call them my cartoon characters that we talk about. So how do you deal with your stress? And so it can show up in a lot of different avenues of not only your life, as you said, that mental, emotional, and that physical life as well. So I can't tell you it's going to affect you, David, differently than it affects me, or differently than it affects our viewers out there.
So one of the things I see a lot, you mentioned a number of ways it affects. I see a lot of people with back pain that's stress related. So that's, I know, a big issue for a lot of people. So let's get into some of the meat of this. So you're talking about these different stress relief techniques that you've developed, that you've learned over the years. What are some of the stress relief techniques that can be used? What are you recommending for folks?
It's different. So in my coaching, we really delve into what's going to be best for you. So,
Mhm.
you know, it's like in one session, we may talk about massage and or body work. I call it body work because
Mhm.
body work can be different things. It can be massage. It could be acupuncture. It could be reflexology. So it can be those different things. So, you know, I had you explore really what is going to be best for you. So like me, a massage, and I had a massage last week to
Mhm.
really work on my back
Right.
because that's where I hold my stress. I do hold my
Mhm.
stress in my back.
Right.
And my massage therapist like, yeah, you've been under a little stress, haven't you? So I hold it in my back, but for me to really be able to relax because I'm in my brain, I
Mhm.
call it monkey brain or monkey chatter.
Right.
I'm
Right.
always in my brain. So for me, a massage that really helps me to just like relax and de-stress
Mhm.
is a cranial sacral massage. That just helps me, it puts me to sleep. I mean, I'm
Right.
laying there on the table and I fall asleep. I mean, and my massage therapist is like, yeah, you kind of zoned out on me. And I'm like, yep, I did. So that's one way, you know, as to looking at those different body work methods.
Mhm.
We can look at breathing techniques. Those breathing techniques really help people to de-stress.
Mhm.
It's like it's helping you. So being a nurse, before I go into a, you know, into a situation, if I'm seeing patients as a home health nurse or a hospice nurse, or if I'm working in a long-term care setting, or if I'm working in the hospital as a nurse, then I like to do those breathing, you know, 2 or 3 just like breaths called breath work
Mhm.
before I go into a patient's room or before I go into a patient's home, because it helps me to center myself. And that's a lot of it. It's like, you know, when you before you go into a stressful situation, I mean, I know, David, that you probably do some speaking, you know, so, you know, doing that, you
Mhm.
know, before you get up on stage. I mean, we're all, before we get on stage, or the majority of us are a little nervous, you
Right.
know,
Sure.
we know what we're going to talk about, but it's that anxiety of before you get on stage that you're
Mhm.
like, okay, you know, I hope I don't like screw up or, you
Right.
know,
Right.
stumble or something. So you take those few breaths to really be able to help you before you get on stage. So those are a couple of different ways that we can look at stress. So I have, you know, a coaching program where I'm really helping those people to delve into different areas of stress
Mhm.
management to figure out what's going to be best for them.
All right. Well, I know a lot of body work techniques. I get massages. A lot of these work. There are many techniques. Breathing. Clearly, these are ones that I use. And it sounds like you work with people to really help them come up with a plan that will be most effective for them.
Yes, I do. Mhm.
Right. So one of the things you always hear is that stress is bad. About stress is just a bad. It does a lot of damaging. Is stress always bad for you?
No, it's not. You know, and that's one thing that I talk about, like when I do a speech or something for a group of people, I really start out with that stress is not always bad.
Hmm.
Stress can be good because it's your body's way of dealing with something that's it's either overwhelmed or it's caused it to be, in a sense, like fearful.
Hmm.
So it's your body's reaction to that stress. And so sometimes stress can be very good. It can make you more focused. It can
Right.
make you more energetic. It can make you more
Hmm.
alert. But when it goes to that extreme, that's when it causes those things that we were just talking about, those, you know,
Hmm.
those gut problems, or that, your high blood pressure
Hmm.
getting more out of whack, or, you know, it can cause a lot of people, you know, if they're under a lot of stress, they may have hives or, you know, skin
Yeah.
conditions that
Hmm.
break out. So it can be good and it can be bad. And most people think that it's bad because that's what they've always heard. Oh, stress is bad, but
Hmm.
it's not. It can be good. So
All right. So we all have different levels of stress. How do you really recognize your stress level and that you should do something about
well, I'm going to talk just a minute then about my stress characters, because that's a good
it? Okay.
way of being able to kind of recognize that. So
Hmm.
I have these 3 cartoon characters
Okay.
that I like to have you kind of recognize, or see if you recognize if you're under stress. So the first one is someone that's got their foot on the gas all the time, and that person they feel like they're always agitated, or they're always angry, or they're just always wound up. It's like they you know, using the old analogy of the top, you know, and you spin the top on the floor and the top keeps just going and going and going. Well, that's kind of this person, that person that's got their foot on the gas. And my cartoon character for that, I like to call it, is Speedy Gonzalez.
Okay.
You know, Speedy was always like, Reba, 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 and he was always just going, you know, it's like he never stopped. So that could be someone, you know, if you feel like that you're constantly going, or that you're constantly feel like you're angry or agitated all the time, or just, you know, you snap at the least little thing, you could be Speedy Gonzalez. The second type is that person that's got their foot on the brake, and that person is someone that's, you know, they seem like they're depressed, or they're just like, you know, just sort of like, in a sense, have this blank look on their face, like, you know, there's just a blank look.
Right.
And that person could be someone, my cartoon character for it, and for us older folks in the group, I'm telling my age now, but I call it Droopy Dog. Do you remember Droopy Dog?
Droopy Dog.
Droopy
a long
Dog.
time ago.
It was a cartoon character a long time ago. So it could either be Droopy Dog, or most people would really look at it as Eeyore. You know, Eeyore is always like, I mean, he's a wonderful friend of Winnie the Pooh. He and Piglet and Winnie would go everywhere, but Eeyore was always like, oh, honey, it's like, do I really gotta go? So that could be someone, you know, that's just that they're kind of like frozen in place. They don't know where to go. So, you know, your first one is Speedy, your second one is Eeyore, and then the third one is that person that's really got both of those characters in themselves. So that person that on the surface, you know, that iceberg analogy of where the iceberg on top, you see only a little bit, and on the bottom you see this huge. So that's kind of I look at that with this too. So that person on the surface area would be that person that's like Eeyore. They're frozen in place. They don't know where to go. They may be depressed. And then underneath would be that person that's like Speedy. They're going. They're maybe constantly agitated. They're overwhelmed. They just don't know what direction to go in. So, and they're like this.
Right.
So who, David, would you think that would be a cartoon character?
It's going back and forth. Almost, I'm trying to think what cartoon characters flipping back and forth between those, and I'm not sure. Who do you have in mind?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Well, when I say it, you're gonna go. I can see that, because on the top they're like stationary, and underneath they're twirling around. Tasmanian Devil.
Ah. Okay.
See?
I see that.
So, and most people when I say that, they're like, oh yeah. Well, like for me, I associate myself kind of like with Tasmanian Devil, because there are times that I'm stuck on the top, but underneath my mind is going 90 miles a minute. It doesn't know where to go.
Bouncing all over the place.
Yeah, it's bouncing all over the place. I mean, it's like on top, like today. I mean, I have, you know, this, you know, interview that I'm doing with you, and then I have, you know, like 5,000 other things that I have to do. And I'm like, okay, where do I go? It's like I'm stuck here on top going, I need to do all this stuff, but underneath my mind's racing. My mind's going, okay, where do I need to go? So for me, I associate with Tasmanian Devil.
Most people know that character, so.
Yeah. And I love the Tasmanian Devil, but it's like, but I associate with that. So looking at that, which stress character do you associate with? Do you associate with being that person that's, you know, that's like overwhelmed and that they're agitated and they're Speedy? Or do you associate with that person that's, you know, like with Eeyore / Droopy Dog, where you don't know where to go? You're stuck and you're just like, you just feel like you're depressed? Or are you the person similar to me where, you know, you've got all this stuff that you need to do, but you don't know which direction to go in, but underneath your mind's racing and going, okay, which direction do I go in? So those are three ways that looking at your cartoon characters that
Mm-hmm.
you can
Yep.
that you can kind of figure out, what's your stress level. If you can't figure them out from there, then there are those the like cognitive symptoms and your behavioral symptoms, your physical symptoms. Most
Mm-hmm.
people are going to look at their physical symptoms of like they're feeling nauseous, or they feel like
Back pain.
vomiting a lot, or their chest pain.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You could also have those behavioral of, you're just snapping, you're
Mm-hmm.
just, like a twig on a tree, when it's windy, it's snapping very,
Mm-hmm.
very quickly, or, you want to sleep a lot, or you want to eat a lot, or you want to, like when I get really, really depressed or really, really stressed, I always say that I want to, crawl in the bed, pull the
Mm-hmm.
covers up over my head, and listen to Barry Manilow.
Got it. Yep.
So, that's an emotional symptom or a behavioral symptom for me, as that's
Sure.
kind of the way that I deal with that. So,
All right. I want to switch hats over here and focus. So one of the things that I know people you talk about is the importance of self-care,
mhm.
especially when you're feeling this kind of stress. And a lot of times people get all these outside demands on their time, might be caregivers, and the focus is you shouldn't really focus on yourself. And it's a common misconception that self-care is selfish. Well, what would you say about that?
Well, I used to always think that it was selfish, but it's really not. It's taking care of yourself. So coming from a nursing perspective,
Mm-hmm.
I used to, I've been a nurse like almost 27, 28 years. Like I said, been in the healthcare field over 30 years. When I first got out of nursing school, I used to always worry about my patients' families, because they'd be sitting there in the hospital and they would just be sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And I'm like, go, I think every town in America has a Walmart,
Right.
or a Dollar General or a dollar store or something. I'd say, go take 30 minutes, go walk around Walmart
Mm-hmm.
or Target or whatever, is in your area. Go do that for 30 minutes. Or, with my hospice family members, I really worried about them, because it's that caregiver burnout, because they feel like they're having to take care of that person 24 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
when they're really not. That person's going to be okay for 30 minutes if you want to go outside
Sure.
and, work in your garden or whatever. So self-care is really not selfish. And I have had to realize that myself over the last few years, that, okay, so I went to get a massage this week, or I went to have acupuncture this week, or, I went in and I took, a bubble bath last night. It's
Mm-hmm.
not selfish. It's taking care of me. And if you don't take care of yourself, nobody else is going to take care of you.
Right.
So you have to figure out what's that self-care for you.
Mm-hmm.
I live on a farm. So I can go, sometimes I'll go on the back of our place and, just sit back there, or I'll go out and, I call check on the cows, or I have 3 dogs and they're here laying in the floor right now. It's like, I'll get down and play with my dogs. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, that's self-care for me. It may only take 5 minutes, but
Right.
5 minutes is okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, we talked about the cartoons and stress, and I guess people are going to find themselves in relating to the different cartoons or different levels of stress and different things. And I know you work with people to help them really develop an overall plan of how they can reduce stress, especially when even if they're in any of those 3 levels, if they see themselves in any of those 3 levels. Who would benefit from working with you? Who are the main people that would benefit from working with you and the experience you have?
I really look at it that it's anyone that's really been through that stressful event. So, I talked about me, that I had, gone through a death. And I started exploring those holistic measures. Then, I went through divorce. I had them. I probably had about 5 major life events at one time. So it's really anyone that's been through a stressful event that really wants to bring that peace and joy back into their life. But they don't want to use, they may have to go on like antidepressants, or they may have to, take some anti-anxiety meds, or, but really it's like they want to bring that peace and joy, but not using those, I call it the bad forms. I mean, and it's not, I mean, antidepressants is not bad. Anti-anxieties are not bad, but, a lot of people deal with their stress by, one of a couple of ways. They're going to, go home and they're going to be, mean to their family, or they're going to, spout off to them, or they're going to want to go, light up a pack of cigarettes, or, they're going to want to go, drink a bottle of wine, or, a 6-pack of beer, or whatever. The Super Bowl was just on Sunday night. So, whoever was San Francisco 49ers was probably stressed. So, so it's like, they don't want to use those, or they want to decrease the amount of wine that they drink a night, or they want to decrease, they don't want to go up. Maybe they want to, I mean, I'm not saying that marijuana is bad, because I mean, it's a really great drug for, cancer victims, and, people that have PTSD, and, all of those, but it's like they may not want to do, illegal drugs, or to do something like that. So they want to find that way of really managing it, but using those holistic measures. So, so it's really that person that's been through that stressful event.
Okay.
I mean, and that stressful event, as we've said, can be anything.
All right. And how should people get in touch with you? What's the best way? You can start what's your website? Give out your website one more time. And
my website is and it's YOUR, holisticconnection.com. You can also find me on Facebook at, it's Kim Holden. I think it's Kim.Holden94. I think if you search, because there's umpteen thousand Kim Holdens on there.
Sure.
And then I also have a Facebook page, that is Your Holistic Connection on Facebook. So you can contact me any of those ways, and we'll see how we can talk.
All right. So yourholisticconnection.com, and there's information about you, how to contact you, what you do. Everything's there. So that's a good starting point for folks. So I know you give advice to people who have friends and family of people who are struggling. So what advice do you have for friends and family of people who are struggling? Someone in your life, you might not be under enormous stress or need help yourself, but somebody. What advice do you have for them?
Take the time. Take that 5 minutes of, just taking a break. I mean, I have a really good friend, and, you ask, I do know someone right now that's having a lot of issues with her mom. And, I say, just take that 5 minutes. If it's taking that 5 minutes to go outside and sit, or if it's taking that 5 minutes to go and, get in your vehicle and scream at the top of your lungs, that's okay. I mean, it's totally okay to do that, but take that time for yourself, because as I said, if you don't take care of you, your spouse isn't going to, your children aren't going to, your friends aren't going to, and find that person maybe that you can talk to. I mean, if it's, if you have to, I mean, I would love to be able to work with you, but, it's like, and I do, like discovery calls where to see whether or not we would be able to work with each other. But then there again, I might look at you and I go, I really can't help you. You may need to go see an actual mental health counselor, to be able to deal with that's going on. But take that time for you.
Okay. So I know there are people that they feel the stress, they know their issues coming, but they're afraid to kind of reach out. What advice do you have for someone who's afraid to just reach out? They're not comfortable for one reason or another.
Don't be afraid to. We all are. I was just telling a friend of mine, I've got to call the student loan people about my student loans, and I've been putting it off. I've been dreading it, but don't do that, because it's like, it's your mental health. It's your emotional health. It's your mind, body, spirit. So don't be afraid to do that. I am not going to judge you by no means. There may be people out there that are, but I don't judge. I want to be able to help hold your hand as you walk through the process of learning what to do. I always say that, the only person that can judge is Jesus Christ. And, he died for us. So he's the only perfect person in this world, and he's no longer with us. I mean, in body form. I'll clarify that. So yeah.
I know we covered a lot of material today and a lot of really good, solid ideas. Before we wrap up, I'm going to give you a chance to offer any final words for our audience, anybody listening, particularly people that are dealing with stress themselves. We've covered a lot. Do you have any final words or message for our audience?
I think it goes back to that, being able to really recognize what is going on with you. I mean, it may not be some huge thing, it may just be, work. And you're like, okay, well, I don't know what it is about work that's causing me to be stressed.
Right.
But take that, as I've already said, take that 5 minutes, take that, if it's going and, you locking yourself in your bathroom for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and taking a bubble bath or taking a long hot shower, do that for yourself. And like I said, I would love to be able to work with you, but it's always up to you. It's up to us. God gave us that free will.
Okay. Sounds good. So just one more time for folks, yourholisticconnection.com. Kim, thank you for sharing really a wide range of ideas and information and insights today. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, David.
All right. And I'd like to thank everybody for listening. And I wish everybody great success in all areas of your life.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye, guys.